This time I'm reviewing the Epson PX-4. This is obviously a successor of the HX20, which I reviewed previously, and it looks rather similar, but it has some really big differences as well. This is not actually the second model right after the HX20, but it is based on the PX8, which has a higher number but came first, if I remember correctly. That was from 1984, while this one was released in 85, I believe, and it has some things that are based on the higher model. Most importantly, the fact it's a CP/M computer, so it doesn't have a built-in BASIC and nothing else like the HX20. This is turned on similarly to the HX20 with a hardware-looking but actually softer button, and you can already see on the screen that it has a DOS-like structure of the file system with a C and a B drive, just like CP/M. It's not right to call it DOS because that's what actually CP/M started with. A nice thing compared to the HX20 is that you can slant this screen slightly. This way you don't see it anymore on video, but I can adjust the contrast just like the other one, and this will change the best angle. So this way you can have much better visibility than with a flat screen. So that's an improvement. Another visible improvement is that you have 4 arrow keys in the placement that has now become ubiquitous, which I find much easier to use than the shifted arrangement in the HX20, and I think most people would. I also find the keyboard a bit nicer to use. Now I can type something by going to the command prompt, and let's try. The keyboard is actually very similar looking to the HX20 and probably similar in mechanics, but perhaps this unit is just less used or something, and it feels a little bit more springy and nicer in general. It also feels like a slightly less uniform pressure to push the keys down. It sinks down a little more feedbackily, and we have the backspace button here this time, closer to the position we are used to. We have a caps lock and the num lock. They are both software like in its predecessor, but this time they also light up LEDs, which is nice, and so does the insert key, which doesn't seem to work in the command prompt, but anyway, that's it. This runs on its own battery like the HX20, but it also is able to take 4 AA batteries. It requires just a little adapter, which might not be easy to find, so look at whether you want to buy one with an original rechargeable battery. If you do buy one of that, make sure it works. It is not depleted. Otherwise, make sure it has an adapter for 4 AA batteries, which won't be recharged by the machine itself. Unfortunately, I remembered wrongly and I thought I had the version with 4 pentile batteries. I don't, so I left this computer a lot of time without any power, and now if I remove the mains power, it would quickly tell me that I need to change the batteries. I can make this happen faster by feeding the paper of the printer. No power. I haven't left it to charge for very long, but I have my doubts I can make this work well any longer, unfortunately. It might be possible to find new batteries on eBay. Let me reconnect this, because the battery of this thing, unlike the HX20, is detachable without opening up the whole thing. It is connected with a little plug that can be detached non-destructively. Now let's see if this turns on again without complaining that the battery... Yeah, it completely lost the memory contents, so the batteries were really out. It asks me to input the date and time, which I might do or I might not. It's not really... actually, that's not what it's asking me to do. Month first. 1/12, and you see it actually does not support years past 17 past 2000. I don't care which week it is. I think you can change the size of an internal drive to decide how much you want to assign to a certain part of memory that becomes a RAM disk. Unfortunately, my unit comes with a customized firmware. These BRAN and ABB disk files aren't things that are supposed to be there on a standard unit. They contain some kind of enterprise, custom enterprise software. If I go to the command prompt, I think in the C drive, which is a chip, everything here is solid state as usual. No, C is the one we just saw. Oh yeah, C table, actually. I can type this. Don't remember whether this is the binary file, so it's typing gibberish and some bells. So there is also a not D but N E, perhaps. Nope. So B. Okay. There is this file a text. Oops. Which you can see the screen scrolls slowly, but still much quicker than the old HX20 screen did. And you can see this, if you read this very quickly, contains some kind of strange enterprise and money related software that I don't really care about. This usually contains a BASIC, so it doesn't start with a BASIC like most home computers, but you can start the BASIC interpreter from CP/M. At least it does have CP/M itself, but it also lacks some commands which would normally be implemented as a executable file. So for instance, I cannot even seem to copy files, which according to documentation should be the pip command, but this command doesn't exist, as pip ? Is telling me, while if I type, well, it gives me a question mark anyway because I didn't specify the argument, but it's not repeating the command, and that indicates the command itself does exist. Okay, aside from this is obviously a printer. I also lack a command to print, because that would be, again, pip redirecting to the LST port, I think, which is the port assigned to the printer. I can, however, print the content of the screen itself with this screen dump key, pretty much like on the HX20. This screen has 40 characters, but in command prompt mode at least it doesn't contain a longer window like the HX20, so the 40 characters is all there is. I can retype what I typed before and try to print it. Oh, actually, yeah, it does have a window. Oh yeah, you see, with Shift I can scroll through this window. So this could actually be used with a word processor, which there is no lack of for CP/M, although not all CP/M programs are going to be compatible with this computer and its small screen. But you could use it. The printer is of course detachable. You can probably guess it, like on the HX20. And no, actually, it's not detachable in the HX20. The thing that is detachable there is the tape drive. In this case, we only have one detachable unit, which can contain a printer or a tape drive or other accessories. I only have the printer, I don't have the tape. I would like to get that, but for now that's it. Let's type something else too. Perhaps write. I can type one. It's better than the other keyboard, but I am not completely at home with this either. You see, a lot of these went in the invisible part of the window, and it missed some keys. I'm not sure whether I mistyped this or the keyboard isn't in perfect shape, although it responds quite well. Anyway, let's try printing. This is not easy because the batteries aren't I just paper feed it right now, but you could hear it does not make a very enticing noise. I think that's because the battery isn't well charged, and the power from the mains always goes through the battery, even when you are using it directly from the mains. So this printer is going to work as far as I am aware, but it will not print epic, what? Control press. It will have some trouble printing at its normal speed, but it will print rather perfectly as far as the final result goes. As usual, the last part of the print out needs to be paper fed to come off the plastic window. Here is the print. It's not that bad. The ink isn't new, you can see that it isn't new, but it's okay. And this uses the same cartridges as the HX20, which are quite common enough. I think this roll of paper, which I don't have a lot left of, is also compatible with the HX20's one, but I'm not sure of that. I also have a RAM expansion module, like I have on the HX20. That's good. It calls it an external RAM disk this time, so that's because you can actually use it as a drive unit, and it is battery backed, although I have no idea whether the battery works right now. One thing I'd like to show you is the backside, as usual. which has firmwares here, a couple of chips covered by stickers indicating these are ultraviolet erasable chips. The ones that would normally come with this computer aren't reprogrammable, I think, but that's because I have a customized version. Here's the chip that probably contains well, it's part of the expansion unit, but I'm not sure whether this is the RAM drive or another bit of firmware. I think the latter. And this is the battery. You can see it even looks like for AA batteries, just covered in... Oh, actually, I think I can use this with... Yeah, just see, it does include the little thing that's required to use it with normal batteries. So that's good. Means that even if this battery is gone, I can still use it from battery. Be careful to avoid snapping the wire here when you close it back. There is a backup button here, which I believe is used to engage a capacitor in order to preserve the memory contents when you swap batteries, if you're using alkalines or, well, any pent-up batteries. And there are also these two small pins which come up like this. I wasn't able to make this one come up. I don't know if it's stuck or something, but you can use this to slant the entire computer. So you can both slant the screen and the entire computer, so if you prefer the keyboard to be slightly slanted like on typewriters, you can do that. And here you have the lock to remove the cartridge that contains, in my case, a printer and such something else. As to connections, you have more standardized connectors than on the HX20. It's standardized in the sense they are all the same. They are not very standard today. There is a cassette connector, which does have slightly different pins than the other two, and a serial, which is not RS-232, and one that is. This is the printer connection, which is rather different, and this is of course the powering. You also have a barcode input, and I'm not sure what this one is. Well, this, you haven't seen that, but it's what I used before to change the contrast and turn on and reset here. So this is a rather nice machine to type on if you like the keyboard, which I don't particularly, but certainly an improvement over the HX20 keyboard-wise. There are some steps back in terms of not having a printer and a tape drive both connected at the same time, even if you own both, although you can connect an external tape drive, so you can keep the external tape and the printer connected at the same time. But if you have an external RAM disk, you can also use that as a storage, so perhaps the tape is less needed. This computer also had a floppy disk accessory, but it was very expensive, and it still is very expensive and very rare to find. That's all there is to say about this. I don't have a PX-8, which is also called a Geneva. That one does have a cassette that's built in, but does not have a printer or a way to connect one as a cartridge. You can of course connect one as an accessory. Okay, next I'm going to review something that doesn't have a mechanical keyboard like this, because I've run out of nice computers with a nice mechanical keyboard. but I do have small things that cannot really contain a mechanical, but which do have a very nice keyboards for their size and usage.